Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank honourable member for the question. In terms of plans, yes, there are plans to convert nursing stations to health centres. There are plans to relocate nursing stations to new sites. And as such, honourable Speaker, the Ministry of Health is grateful for the budgetary allocation, which we term seed funding, and this will be utilized in the initial preparatory works for upgrading of nursing stations to full health centres or relocation purposes. So in terms of upgrading of nursing stations to health centres, there are certain criteria that must be met in terms of ensuring that a nursing station can be upgraded to a health centre, and if it is upgraded, until which health centre level it is upgraded to. So in terms of the grades of health centres, there's level A, B, and C, and the nursing stations, there's the old model, which is the where the workplace and the operational space are joined together, and there's the new model, which is separated. For instance, for a nursing station such as Town Nursing Station, it used to be old model, but we have built a new living quarters for the nurse, and therefore the whole facility is now being used as a operational area for the nursing station. And again, it depends on if the ministry wants to elevate a nursing station to a health center, if it is fit, based on a number of criteria, maybe population size, maybe there is a conversion of school, secondary school, and so forth. So in those instances, yes, we are guided by our AMU team in terms of how and when these upgrades can happen. But and also in terms of one of the main factors we also take into consideration is the geographical isolation of an area. Say, for instance, like Rotuma. Rotuma is very far, and even though it has a population probably less than Randi, it is a subdivisional hospital. So in those cases, that's taken into consideration. And in terms of some of the examples, if I can mention it to you, in the Eastern Division, Soso Nursing Station in Kandavu has been upgraded to a health center, and that is inclusive of living quarters for the nurses and the doctor, together with the area of work. So again, that has to be taken into consideration, is the living quarters as well. That has to be first included as a main priority before we can definitely say it is a new health center, but previously a nursing station. So for Central Division, we have seen Ngalor Nursing Station in Serua, in the Serua Namosi subdivision has been upgraded to the health center. The Mbombulo Nursing Station in the interior of Netasiri has been elevated to a health center. Lomewuna Nursing Station and the Namara Nursing Station, all again operated by, all looked after by nursing practitioners, which again it comes up to a level of around a health center service delivery kind of. All throughout the 4 divisions as well, we have seen that the need for new nursing stations. For example, in the area around Sangani, we feel that there should be another nursing station to cover between the health center and Lakemba, because in between the Sangani area there is no other area of service. So there's one plan for Sese in Sangani. And in terms of the some of the relocation nursing station to new sites, you have Tokemalo nursing station, which is budgeted for, and then there's Highlands nursing station, which also sits in a site within the village. Used to be a self-help initiative by the village, but now they've given a land on the opposite side of the village, and that is up for preparatory works. But again, as I've mentioned, in terms of upgrading of a nursing station to a health center level, dependent on the grade, it also must be upgraded with the capacity of storage, because the expansion of drugs that will be accommodated into their facilities, it will be upgraded also in terms of the living quarters, as I've mentioned, and so forth. So it's a big work to upgrade a facility to a degree and a level of service delivery, but that is something that requires proper planning. Because when we came in, we have seen that most of the facilities, they have been upgraded from nursing station to health centers. No, they were just in name. There was no accommodating living quarters for the doctors and the nurses. So it's still operated by the nursing practitioner. But again, that is something we are playing catch up with in ensuring that while we upgrade, that all aspects of the upgrade have to be met to ensure that an area where we send staff to, it is workable and also livable.
Thank you, Honourable Minster. I now floor is open for supplementary questions. Honourable Maharaj, you have.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank Minister for that comprehensive answer that he gave with regards to the upgrade. The other supplementary question would be with regards to rightfully said that there was just name change from nursing station to health centers. Most of the health centers at the moment, they don't have the waiting area. So can Minister elaborate as to what's being done? Because as we actually upgrade from nursing station to health center, the number grows, but we actually have seen that waiting area is an issue whichever health center you actually visit. So is there any intentions to have a separate project just to improve the waiting area for the patients? Thank you.
Yes, that is something considered by the ministry, and as you can see in our budgetary allocation, there is minor works, and sometimes in the last financial year, most of the divisions have utilized that to construct waiting areas within facilities they deem fit that there should be waiting areas. But for the ones that have been upgraded, yes, waiting areas provisions have been included in the expense.
Chair, we'll move on to the next question. I will ask Honourable Elvin Maharaj to ask the second oral question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, my question is 131, again directed to Minister for Health and Medical Services. Can the Minister inform Parliament whether the Ministry is undertaking a review or restructuring the Fiji pharmaceutical and biomedical services to improve its management and operational performance? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minster.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank the Honourable Member for the question. I just realized now, Honourable Speaker, sir, that question time is more on question on health and education. So I think it is our question time today for health and education. Nevertheless, maybe because we are given more money. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry of Health and Medical Services has initiated extensive structural and operational reforms at the Fiji Pharmaceutical and Biomedical Services to address persistent supply chain issues and improve overall efficiency. While government receives inadequate allocation for medical supplies, including 82.4 million, specifically for pharmaceutical and biomedical supplies and management distributions, approximately 72 million budgeted explicitly for the purchase of medical supplies and equipment. And this has led to the execution of the replacement plan, such as the purchase and installations of 18 new floor mount X-ray units, 16 dental chair, hematology machines, to name a few. To systemically address these operational challenges, the Ministry strategic intervention includes supply chain digital reforms, digital inventory integration. The Ministry has fully transitioned from paper-based tracking to the M-Supply online logistics system, with approximately 9,086 stock keeping units in the inventory, with an average stock holding of 48.6 million in 2027, in comparison to 47.6 million in 2025-2026, and 46.08 million in 2024-2025. Healthcare staff and rural health centers now utilize digital tablets to request medical, dental, laboratory, and radiological supplies in real time. Direct doorstep delivery. This distribution model has changed to bypass unnecessary logistic bottlenecks with the setup of warehouse Tolu in the Northern Division, which serves all health facilities at the north, and the next phase is to expand with the warehouse at the west to allow for better prepositioning of supplies. Projected operational savings, partnering with regional logistics beyond essential systems backed by Australian government cooperation. The reform has minimized the tendering process timeline from 5 months to within 1 to 2 months for the existing 34 tenders, which consist of medicines, medical consumable, dressings, clothing, infection control, appliance, bed linen, X-ray, and laboratory equipment. In terms of policy and legislative updates, regulatory reviews, the Ministry of Health and Medical Services actively conducting legislative overhaul to key governing frameworks, specifically targeting the Medicinal Product Act of 2011 and the Pharmacy Profession Act of 2011 to optimize stock levels and standards. That is something ongoing. The international pharmacopoeia integration, Fiji has signed a new pharmacopoeia agreement with India. This allows government to buy basic medicines at affordable prices to ensure timely availability across all subdivisions and nursing stations. Localized testing infrastructure, in addition to administrative restructuring, testing facility currently being developed into phases from this financial year with a small unit. This eliminates the need to send medical products to Australia for testing and establishing Fiji as a self-sufficient South Pacific medicine hub. The latter is very important in terms of the development of Fiji pharmaceutical and medical supplies in terms of the local testing infrastructure. That is the next phase that in terms of the development of that site to ensure that I had mentioned earlier, to allow our technical people to test medicine on site at within FPBS so that they do not have to refer overseas. And again, it can be a hub for the region in that they can send their specimens over to Fiji for testing. But that is something we are planning for something into the future. Those are some of the reforms that have been made based on the question asked. Now.
Yeah, thank the Honourable Minister. Supplementary, Honourable Maharaj.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank again Minister for his comprehensive answer. In terms of infrastructure, but before that, I would like to actually thank the Director and his team with the limited resources and space they have, what they are trying to do. Mostly we do hear in the news that people are asking questions and reflecting bad on what and how FPBS is performing, but we do understand with the limited resources they are doing utmost they can. In terms of infrastructure, especially at Watuanga, Minister, though there is another warehouse that has been built, but still it's not sufficient enough. We have seen a lot of 40-footer and 20-footer container sitting in the parking yard trying to allocate the storage space. So are there any plans to develop another bigger warehouse for FPBS? Because the way things are stacked in the warehouse at the moment, that's also one of the reasons to identify where the products are before it's supplied to hospitals and health centers. So what are the plans for new infrastructure?
Thank you,
Minister.
Honourable Member, for that supplementary question. Yes, if you go to the back of PBS, there's ample space at the back for expansion, and that is something I'd mentioned in terms of the testing capabilities and also an expansion of storage. Current site as it is, even with warehouse Rua, it's full. It's full. So we are grateful. I have just, in my visits to FPBS, I learned that the site was given by the former Prime Minister to the then pharmaceutical board at the time back then. We are grateful for that, and we did a survey and found that there's still ample space at the back for expansion to happen, and we plan to utilize that, as you have rightly said, for to build spaces for extra storage for our essential medicines and equipments and supplies.
Thank you. We'll move on to the third oral question. I will now call on the Honorable Hemchand to ask question 133 of 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to ask question 133 of 2026. The question is directed to Minister for Health and Medical Services. Given the increasing number of HIV cases in Fiji, can the Minister inform Parliament what progress the Ministry has made towards achieving its target for reducing new HIV infections?
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Thank the Honourable Chan for the question. Honourable Speaker, sir, let me be direct with his House, in that Fiji is now in a generalized HIV epidemic. 2026 UNAIDS estimates indicate that about 9,100 people were living with HIV in 2025, and possibly as many as 12,000, up from fewer than 700 in 2010. Adults from 15 to 49 years, prevalence has reached 1.6%, crossing the threshold that defines a generalized epidemic. New infections are still rising, an estimated 1,700 in 2025, roughly 3 times the level in 2018. I will not stand before this House and claim that we have already turned the curve downward. Our honest position is that we have not yet reached the turning point. But I can assure the House that for the first time, the Ministry has placed the coordinated response required to bend it. And beneath the headline figures, there is real measurable progress in very areas that determine whether new infections eventually fall. Mr. Speaker, sir, our first task is to find people living with HIV, because a person who knows their status can be protected and can protect others. Here the progress is clear. The number of people who know their status has risen from around 785 in 2022 to some 3,551 in 2025. The number of people on treatment has grown from about 506 in 2020 to just over 2,000 in 2025. And here, viral suppression is key. The goal of treatment is to suppress the virus to undetectable levels, and the person who is virally suppressed cannot pass HIV. Let me repeat that again. A person who is virally suppressed cannot pass HIV. Treatment is therefore also prevention. So every person who starts on treatment, keep in care and support to reach viral suppression reduces future infections. I should be candid with the House that we cannot yet measure viral suppression reliably across the country from our current data. Strengthening viral load testing and the systems behind it, it is itself part of the response plan, so that we can hold ourselves accountable to this most important measure. Our own data has told us where the system is failing, and this government is acting on it. As testing has expanded, the share of diagnosed people who are actually started on treatment has fallen over 98% with 2021 to about 56% in 2025. In short, we are now finding people faster than we were linking and keeping them in care. Closing that gap through same-day treatment start and active support to keep people in care is the single most powerful action available to us. And it is at the center of the National HIV Outbreak Response Plan, which this government has established and funded, alongside expanded testing and community-led outreach. We are also protecting mothers and infants, as women now account for around 42% of new infections. Mr. Speaker, sir, prevention is where we can stop infections before they begin, but we must be honest about what is driving them. The Ministry recognizes a significant role that high-risk drug use, in particular sharing of needles and syringes, is playing in a rapid rise of new HIV infection in Fiji. The global evidence is clear. A harm reduction program, including a needle syringe program, is urgently needed to interrupt this route of transmission. The Ministry, together with our partners in the law and justice sector, is working to draft the regulations that will support the safe and lawful introduction of harm reduction. Once those regulations are in place, we intend to scale up harm reduction programs as a priority. Mr. Speaker, sir, prevention is where we can stop infections before they begin. And here I want to highlight one of the most promising tools now available to us. Fiji has moved quickly to introduce PrEP, which is short for pre-exposure prophylaxis, a medicine that a person who is HIV negative can take to protect themselves from acquiring the virus. And we are among the early movers in our region to make it available. But I will be honest with the House, uptake so far has been slower than we needed it to be, because too few of those at risk yet know the protection exists or how to obtain it. That is why the Ministry is now seeking funding to market PrEP and scale up its use extensively across the country. I am also pleased to inform the House that Fiji is preferentially accessing lenacapavir, a breakthrough form of PrEP that requires only 2 injections a year to provide protections from HIV, with the first supplies expected to arrive at the end of this year. This has been possible thanks to DFED and our partners at the Global Fund. A medicine that protects a person for 6 months at a time has the potential to transform prevention in Fiji, particularly those who find daily tablet difficult to sustain. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to be candid with this House on one further point. Fiji's political commitment to this response has been strong, and this government has backed it with a fund multi-year plan. But translating that commitment into measurable fall in new infections will take time. These interventions must be scaled across all 4 divisions, and that depends on strengthening a health workforce that remains stretched and on the enabling measures, some requiring the support for this House, that allow the response to reach everyone in need. For these reasons, a sustained reduction in new infections is a medium-term outcome. The measures of progress I can honestly report to the House today are the sharp rise in people being tested, diagnosed, and the growth in people on treatment, our early introduction of PrEP and lenacapavir, and a clear funded plan to close gaps that the data has exposed. The Ministry is doing the necessary work now so that Fiji reaches the turning point as early as possible. And I ask the continued support of this House in that effort. Mr. Speaker.
Thank the Honourable Minister. The supplementary, Honourable Kumar.
Thank you, sir. My question is related to the perception that is attached to the free syringe program. There is this view that we are promoting the use of drugs rather than preventing the spread of HIV. So in that area, Minister, how would you, or what will you do to change this perception? And we were also told during the HIV workshop we had at the Parliament that the syringes are sitting in the warehouse, but they're not able to put it out in public places.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's a very good question. And it's one of the challenges that we're facing in the introduction of the program. For starters, we have to have the buy-in of the Ministry of Justice, police, and so forth. So just from the operational aspects point of view, we have taken a special team made up of various parts of the ministries and organizations to look at how needle exchange program is done in Australia. And it was an eye-opener for the police that we took over and so forth. And it really changed their perspective on what the program is about, as we are mindful of the fact that, yes, there are ongoing concerns that we are promoting drug use, but that is not the case. And that is for the technical part. Then we have to go out into the community to have the buy-in of the community. That is why through the task force we are continuously talking with the faith-based organization, the Vanua, and other relevant organizations out there who continue to push back on the introduction of the program. It is basically one of the easiest way we can reduce transmission. That is the basic underlying factor. But we have the buy-in of the community. We continuously raise the issue with them. We already have the support of the relevant stakeholders on the operational side, and even some to the extent of the community. But again, we will continue to try and reach out to those that are constantly pushing back on the idea of this program being implemented. And that is the usual case. If any new program that comes in that has a perception that it is, you're causing more trouble than good. So more work for us to do in terms of getting that to the community. That is why the ministry is partnering with the Vanua, religious, faith-based organizations, and other organizations out there to ensure that we pass this message on and that we are trying to do something good here with introducing this program.